American Business Podcast for the next generation. I'm Kevin Deveji, your host. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jesse Puddles from Spot Corp Events. Let's welcome Jesse to our podcast. Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yes, you made it. We all made it. That's great.
Yes, we did
feeling,
it.
feeling good. Feeling good. Yes. So let's get started if that's okay. Yes, I love the energy. Much appreciated.
Yes,
So that's good. So
absolutely.
let's get started. Well, as a start, would you please introduce yourself and your company to our audience and to our followers?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Puddles. I am the CEO and founder of Spot Corp Events. We do team building and employee engagement through theater and storytelling. At the crux of what we do is the understanding that stories are the core of everything in business. Stories are how we make sales, they're how we market, they're how we do everything. But they're also how we connect. We use theater and storytelling to create real bonds by understanding the stories of yourself and your colleagues.
Jesse, thank you. Let's shift it towards your career journey. So, how did you get started? You are an entrepreneur. You are the head of the company. That's very exciting. Congratulations. So,
Thank you.
please tell us about it. How did you start? How is the story, please?
Yes, absolutely. Kevin loves this word, so I will start by saying that I am an unexpected entrepreneur. So, I
That's
started
good.
my entrepreneur journey how everyone starts their entrepreneur journey. I had a fight with a roommate. No, but that's really what happened. It was the middle of the pandemic. I had a fight with a roommate. I had nowhere to feel my feelings or express myself. I couldn't go to a friend's, and I ended up having a moment where I performed in an empty parking lot for no one. And I've been performing my whole life, but this was different. This was this catharsis and this release and this realization that there is some value in performing for yourself. It's why we love singing in our car or getting on stage and doing karaoke with our friends. There's something about it, and I wanted to bottle that. And so I created an experience for consumers that would bottle that experience, would allow people to be seen, heard, and valued for their own stories. And originally, it was just supposed to be a consumer event, and then what happened was that we would have these events, and then people would stay at the event 3, 4 afters that hours after they were over. They were becoming best friends, and they were becoming roommates. And I was like, "What's happening? You people didn't know each other before." And one day, someone said, "Why don't you have anything like this for work?" And I thought about it, and I realized what was happening. We were creating what's called psychological safety, which basically means people feel comfortable sharing openly, they feel comfortable taking risks, and they feel comfortable in an environment where they don't have to be perfect. They can make mistakes. And I realized that this program is directly transferable to creating community in business. If you've ever been in a meeting where you were sitting there and there was a leader who was maybe talking and not saying anything particularly unsafe, but you were worried to speak up. You were worried you might be wrong. You were worried. It means that your space didn't have psychological safety. We create environments where you get to practice having and overcoming those feelings so that when it's a real meeting, when it's a real moment, you're like, oh, I rapped in front of my coworkers. I can absolutely speak up and add my opinion to this topic that we're talking about. And what we know from business is that it's that speaking up that leads to the strongest teams because research shows that the greatest ideas happen when everyone gets to bring their own individual expertise or their own story to the room. And so that is how I became an accidental entrepreneur. And also because of my background in uh, leadership and professional development, which I can go into later, it was the perfect fit for me.
That's amazing. It's exciting, and I love the energy.
Thank
Well,
you.
so when you look at your job, your business, what are the challenging and exciting parts of your day-to-day work?
Challenges. Being a business owner is easy. Never had a challenge. No, of course not. There are so many wonderful challenges. I think that the biggest challenge that we face is helping people understand that even though our concept is novel, our foundation is founded in the structural science of what makes team building so special. So, again, like I said before, we are team building through theater and storytelling. And while people love the idea of that, people are always nervous to try something new. People are like, will this actually have impact? Will I actually see? Because engagement is at a 10-year low. Retention challenges right now are very high, and people are looking for solutions that work. And what I found with our solution, especially when it comes to team building, is that it is basically generational proof. So the thing that often happens with a lot of these team building initiatives and things like that is that if you bring in a speaker who does something really academic and heady and intelligent, it's probably going to appeal, and we're speaking generally, to your Gen X and your baby boomers who are looking for tangible access to facts. Then you've got millennials, you've got my generation that loved like a cocktail hour or like just getting to communicate or spend time or play laser tag or do something with their business colleagues. And then you have Gen Z who, as a community, want to really feel like they're being heard, want to really feel like they're connecting, want to really feel like their ideas are being listened to. Our program hits all three of those needs. We back everything that we do with research backed practices so that your Gen X and your baby boomers are like, oh, why did I just play with puppets? Okay, great. Well, it lowered your cortisol levels, which reduced your stress, which inherently have actually transformed your relationship with work and stress. And they go, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And then your millennials get the experience of like, oh, we're gonna like play games and tell stories and like potentially like, rap or dance or sing. Okay, that's scary, but I'm in. That sounds fun. It sounds silly. It sounds like we're gonna have a good time. And then you have your Gen Zs who are like, oh, we're gonna actually get to open up and share our ideas, our thoughts, our feelings. We're interested. We want to be heard. We want to speak up. And so we're really generational proof, which also makes it a challenge because you need to explain because they're like, okay, which group do you hit? And the answer is all of them.
Yes, well, actually, you just mentioned earlier about employee engagement. Why employee engagement is important for businesses, manufacturers, or businesses in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key reason that employee engagement is important is because you get the best work out of your employees when they're engaged. If you have an employee who's disengaged and but they're not in trouble, they're not like doing bad, they're going to give you exactly what you ask for. They're not going to innovate, they're not going to try to do more, they're not going to ask for additional work, they're not going to push themselves further. And so basically what you're getting is the equivalent of a paper pusher until they either realize they're so disengaged that they leave, and then they're costing your business thousands of dollars on average. To lose an employee, it costs about one third of their yearly salary. So if you've got a $60,000 employee, every time an employee is disengaged enough to leave, you just lost $18,000, and that's for one employee. So on the retention side, it is paramount. And then even if you have these people in, then they're not adding anything to the business. They're not adding anything new. So they're basically a placeholder. Whereas if you have an engaged employee, they're going to present new ideas which maybe could improve your business. They're going to speak up on their team and they're going to challenge in a politeful and respectful way their leaders' ideas, providing new and interesting concepts to them that can only elevate everyone's ideas. And they are going to bolster the entire team. When you have a disengaged employee, you are slowly going to see the team around them become disengaged because they're going to be like, Well, Johnny doesn't have to do it. We know Johnny like only does 10% of the work that we're doing. And then we don't want to do it. Okay? Well, now you've got two disengaged employees. And then someone's mad at that employee, and then you've got three. And before you know it, you have an entire team that's disengaged just because Johnny didn't like his work. So get them with engagement by getting the whole group together. And and the other thing, and this is a number one key thing, is that 70% of people leave because they don't feel connected to their leader. Not because they don't like their job, because they don't feel connected to and cared for by their leader. Doing programs like Spot Corp, where your leader really gets to show you how much you mean to them and how special you are, can transform your retention. It can transform all your Johnnies, and it can lead to innovation.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Well, I like to shift our conversation towards AI a little bit. So
Yeah.
we ask this question to our guest in each episode, and I like to share this with you as well. Well, AI is here to stay. That's how it looks. We utilize AI on daily basis in our business, also individually in our lives as well. What is your take on AI? How it's going to change our lives as well as businesses? Also in your industry as well, employee engagement type of events. What is your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, AI as a whole, I think it's a great tool. I think it is really helpful when, I've used it to make meal plans when I'm trying to lose weight, or I've used it to make workout plans. Really, it seems like I use it a lot to try and figure out ways to get in shape. But in all seriousness, it helps doing some of that thinking for you. And I think the key word that I use, especially when it comes to my business, is the word tool. AI is a really great tool for if we're designing a session. So all our sessions are entirely customized. And if we are working on a session and we know what their need is for this part of the session, and we know we need to do this kind of game or this kind of activity, but we don't know exactly what we want. We know we want these elements and these elements, but we haven't tied it all together. I'll use AI to generate me a list of 5 to 10 exercises. But that's where it stops. AI gives you the groundwork, but it can't, at least the AI I've seen, it can't do all the nitty gritty of really, because for instance, we have had a group that asked us to do empathy in marketing. They wanted really to be put in the other person's in the buyer's shoes, and to feel have their employees feel that empathy. We asked AI for a list of 10 examples of improv and acting games that could deal with that. AI did a good job of giving us games that deal with empathy, but it missed that piece of in marketing. It missed that piece of how you actually translate this to the feeling of being a buyer. So once they gave us the games, we found the game that resonated most with us, and then edited and tweaked it so that you weren't just speaking to the empathy of another person, but an empathy of an entity, of a whole community, of a whole environment. And so that's really what it is. It is a tool for getting you past writer's block or moments of challenge, but it is not the end product. You still need your own ingenuity and your own complex understanding of the inner workings of your business and your community in order to utilize it powerfully in business.
Yes, these are important insights. We had actually experts before, also subjects of AI or AI in AI industry altogether. Yeah, they actually mentioned similar things as well. AI being the tool, so not in a position of replacing uh, occupations. It is not yet. That's how it looks, and depends on how we program it. Also, that's another point, of course. But looking at it as a tool and utilizing it is more realistic nowadays. That's actually what we are learning from experts. And similarly, you mentioned similar insights. That's important. So it looks like that's how it is positioned nowadays. But then
Yeah.
we'll see the future, right? That's to be seen. All right, good.
Yes.
Well, speaking of features, so let's talk about predictions. Well, So in our podcast session, we talk about predictions, and I like to ask you as well. So, what are your predictions for 2025 and further in terms of economy and job market and business in general? How it's gonna be? You think?
Y- Yeah, absolutely. I think we in general are at a time of like absolute spike with the way technology is transforming. But I think the key for me when I look at predictions is because I'm not an economist, right? I do team
Mhm,
building and employee engagement. So for me, the question is how is the economy and all of that going to affect my business, right?
mhm.
And I think in the most, empowered and honest way, I can say it won't. Teams are always going to be important. And the ideas of the many is always going to outweigh the ideas of the one. And creating interpersonal connection, creating authentic backing is something that we're always going to need because because of what I said, because the ideas of the many are always going to supersede it. So when I think about the economy, when I think about the future of business in general, because of where I am positioned in the market that I am, my thoughts always go to my business, and the answer is that we're always going to need team camaraderie.
Yes, makes sense. Yes, absolutely. Well, this is a bonus question. So,
Okay.
well, we talk about employee engagements and team building. That they are critical, right, for any business. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, for any business who hasn't experienced any type of employee engagement activity, for example, or event, how can they start? What's going to be the starting point? Right? How they can, you know. Uh, get it started in their organization or get planning, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. So I think that really comes to the structure of how we build. Um, and we always say that culture is the only thing that actually trickles down. So culture starts at the top and it works its way down. So the way that we work is that we want to work with your highest level of leadership team that we can. Because if we start with, your front of the line employees and them, they'll be great and they'll be connected. But if they have a boss, or because we always include the leader in the session, that's super important to us. But let's say
Mhm,
their boss's boss is not involved and doesn't know any of the things that we've now taught this group, if they come down and they rain, discomfort and pressure and all these things, it can filter down and crush any work that you've been doing in team building. So if you start at that first level, you're going to
mhm,
lose that momentum. But what you do is you start with the leadership team. You get them on board, you get them transformed, you get them really feeling what it means to be a truly bonded team, to trust each other, to feel safe with each other. And then you watch that trickle down. And then what you'll see is, okay, this team is actually starting to transform already. We want to get a session on with them. This team is really struggling. We want to get a session on with them. This team seems like they're in a stasis place. Let's hold on them until we get these two in line, and then we'll get to this team. So it starts at the top and then it works its way down. If you've never tried team building, or if you're wondering why it didn't work in the past, think about where you started the process, because always start from the top.
yes, yes, I definitely agree with you, and some of it I see it also in our in enterprise software industry that I am in. Anytime that we implement a new technology in an organization, it always starts from the top. It's because it's change management. So change starts with a leader, and there has to be a leader, and
Yes.
leader has to lead, show the direction, and
Yes.
help team follow the change, the process. So absolutely. So that's what I'm hearing. There are similarities, and the leaders' involvement in this type of processes is critical.
Y-
So that's
yes,
what I'm
exactly.
hearing from you as well at the same time. So that's amazing.
Yes. Yeah,
Good. That's
no,
good.
and to speak to this really quickly, just um in speaking of change management, I have a perfect example of that. We had a
Mhm.
team that we worked with where it was a brand new leader and a super like disconnected, somewhat disagreeable team. And we were like weren't sure how they were going to mesh, and so what we did was we created an environment where they could openly all explore that feeling of overcoming the discomfort of change and realizing what it feels like to be on the other side of it, having them tell stories about that feeling of accomplishment. And then we worked with that team for many months, and then what we realized was we were in a session with them like a month or two ago, and one of their leaders said, "Wow, like I'm so appreciative you guys stuck with me through all of this." And they said to him, "We would never leave you. We would never leave you because we feel so connected to you." And that's that part you're talking about. That's why the leader is so important. Because even as all of the things and the general things that happen in business happen, if you feel supported by leadership, if you feel supported by the people at the top, you will fight for the organization. You will fight to stay in the community because you care about the people.
I like to shift our conversation towards next generation as part of our missions at the American Business Podcast. We like to share insights with next generation as well, in addition to to current generation, of course. So let's talk about internships and apprenticeship programs a little bit. What do you think about internship programs as well as apprenticeship programs for next generation to get ready for their career path?
I think they're absolutely paramount. I think that as much great things as you can learn in schooling from being out in the world, I can tell you every single job that I've known someone have, there has been someone who said, "I never knew about this part of the job until I was on it." There are just certain parts of the job that they do not teach you in school. And the only way to actually have access to it is to actually get a hands on experience of that work. And I think as far as for internship leaders and apprenticeship leaders, it is really important that you give them a mixture of one, that grunt work that needs to get done so they understand all of the intricacies, and teaching them how much goes into the actual job. So they don't just feel like a cog in the machine. They understand why they're a cog in the machine and what's the larger vision at play, what's the larger things that are happening around them, so that they get a realistic view of the industry that they're potentially going into. And I've even had it happen in a positive way where someone got an authentic understanding of a experience of work or of a specific industry from being in an internship, and realized they thought they wanted to be in the industry and they don't. And now they're in an industry that they love and that they enjoy and they feel connected to. And so giving people these hands-on experiences moves forward the process of them finding where they're really meant to be.
You are the head of Spot Corp events. You're an entrepreneur. Do you have
Yes.
any role models that you can share with our audience?
I do. Yes. It's a little bit cheesy, but my probably my biggest role model is my dad. Um, my dad moved our entire family to Philadelphia when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and he was a lawyer and he was with a company, and it just wasn't a fit. And he left that job, and he had no plan and no assurity of what he was going to do, and he basically found a business online, a small business, bought in, and he built it from the ground up. And I got to really watch someone become an entrepreneur in front of my eyes. And I have watched him overcome challenges. I have watched him take on things in his business that he never thought he was going to have ever have to deal with. I have seen him get to these crazy heights where even he was like, "I don't know. I've never been this level of a leader before." I've seen, him struggle, and I think when we see people in places of success, when we see people who are accomplished, it's really easy to think that, "Oh, well, they just breezed through." And my dad reminds me every day that it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be comfortable, but the rewards on the other side of all that hard work are so worth it.
Well, we are coming towards the end of our our episode. But before we end it, I have two more
No.
points that that I like to share with you. One of them is: do you have any final career advice with the for the next generation that they can follow and listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one piece of career advice that I would probably lock in with is finding your passion is an ongoing journey. And just because you find your passion doesn't mean there aren't going to be days you're going to be at work and you're going to be challenged or frustrated or sad or tired or any of these things. But what it means is that when you think about the larger impact, when you think about how it feels to do the work, when you think about the kind of effect it's going to have on the people around you and what you value, because to be fair, that's also what I value, and some people value more stability and finances and things like that. So it's really about locking into what you value, finding career and professional aspirations that fit that need, and then understanding the difference between when you're having a rough day, a rough week, a rough month, and when you genuinely don't feel connected to the work, when you genuinely are bored or disconnected or feel uninterested by the activities that you're doing. And also know, especially in today's world, you may love something for 10 years and it may be the perfect fit for 10 years. And then you may find a new passion. And that may be where you need to be for the next 10, 15 years. Don't be afraid to listen to what's happening inside of you and shift accordingly.
I love our conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights. Before we end our episode, would you like to share your reach out information, how our audience can get in touch with you?
Yes, absolutely. So, my name is Jesse Puddles. Just like I think it says on the screen. If not, it's JESSE PUDLES. I'm the only Jesse Puddles on the internet, so I'm very easy to find. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow Spot Corp events, which you can also see on the screen on LinkedIn. Our consumer events, which we still run, which I told you about, the spaces for people to feel seen, heard, and valued for their own stories. You can follow those on our Instagram, and then you can get information and schedule your own discovery call at spotcorpevents.com.
Jesse, thank you very much for being with us in your busy schedule. Thank you for sharing all the insights and educational knowledge. Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you so much for the opportunity and for what you're doing for the next generation to
My
really
pleasure.
help them understand what it means to be in business and go on that journey.
My pleasure. It's getting better and better with the experts like yourself. Thank you for your contribution. Much appreciated.
Of course. Of
To
course.
our audience and to our followers, thank you very much for watching us. As you know, every Friday we get together here at the American Business Podcast episodes. Sometimes we have one episode. Today we had 3 episodes back to back. So it was a great experience for us. We are ending it with Jesse Puddles. It was also a great episode for all of us. So next Friday, we are looking forward to seeing you at the American Business Podcast. Please follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and Facebook. And looking forward to seeing you. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.